When did you realize that you're dating and your future husband-wife? I actually fell in love the moment that I saw him for the first time and immediately felt some kind of weird sensation whereby I knew in my heart that I wanted to spend my life with him. We've had our ups and downs, and after a few years we broke up but then found each other again. We're together now for 19 years and each day it gets better. Kinda anxious though, knowing that there will come a time that one of us will die and the other one needs to continue. We just try to spend lots of time together and enjoy every moment. About 4 dates in, I was sick as a dork. Called her to reschedule and she told me I'll find the closest diner, grab some comfort food, and we can sit on the couch and watch comfort movies instead. Being told that I didn't have to put on a show, that I didn't have to be at my best, that she wanted to be with me even when I was very much not doing super great. I knew there and then. We close in on 6 years being married in about 2 months, and with all the stuff we've dealt with I couldn't ask for a better partner. First met until first date 5 months because she had a boyfriend. First date until proposal 6 weeks. Proposal until acceptance 2 seconds. Proposal until wedding 5 months. Wedding until first child 5 years. Wedding until today 35 years, 2 days. First date until first real argument, still waiting. She's my best friend and we spend almost all our time together. I knew that she was the one by the end of the first day and I'm still madly in love with her. I have had a blessed life because of her. I suspected it the moment I saw him in person. We met online and chatted for 1 week. Before meeting, he somehow looked even better than his photos. 3 weeks in, I suggested we make a fort. He immediately agreed, and we made the most elaborate fort in his living room and watched a movie in it. I was 100 sure he was the one at that point. Going on 7 years now. We're best friends. Sex is great. We've had maybe 1 fight ever. I don't believe in soulmates, but he's pretty damn close. From the first time I met, how I knew. Sounds cheesy, I know, but it was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. We met through a dating app, which had never amounted to much of anything for me before, but with this one match I just had a gut feeling that I had to meet her. Then I saw her and felt like I had known her my whole life, and she felt the same. We've been together almost 3 years now, and we'll be married a month from tomorrow. We had a big argument before our second date. This would usually be a bad sign, but we both admitted fault for communicating poorly and resolved it like adults. We've been married for 2 years and of course, we still have our arguments, but we're really good at resolving them. Our golden ticket is being able to say, I love you and I'm upset with you. Even better when we can say, it makes me emotional when you action. Honestly, at our first date, he was waiting for me outside of his car and it took just 1 look at those big, brown eyes and I was done. I had a feeling in my chest to just open my arms and hug him tight. I didn't want to seem like a lunatic though. Been together for 2 years and we will be moving together this summer. I still want to run towards him and hug him tight every time I see him, even though we see each other every day. It took about 8 months of dating. Initially I was quite sure I liked him a lot, but we had some differences. And the first COVID lockdown started a few months after our first date, which turned so many things upside down. But during the second COVID lockdown, we basically moved in together. And we had so much fun. That's when I seriously started considering that he could be my future husband. We got married last year. Very early. We went on a few casual dates after college classes. There was an obvious connection, unlike any before. College ended. We exchanged phone numbers. I debated, should I call? Commitment is scary. And I knew this had the potential to be the real thing. Was I ready? I remember telling my friends, if I call her, I'll end up marrying her. I called, and I was right. 36 years this November. It was very early, within the first few weeks. For the first time in my life I felt safe and valid. He was kind not just to me but everyone around him. Within a few months we were spending basically every chance we could together and never tired of him. I finally felt at home. 10 years later, and I still feel safe and valid and cared for. He's taught me patience and unwavering love. It's so cliché, but immediately, apartment to pick me up, I got really overwhelmed with a feeling I had never felt before. And I called my best friend and said I have this weird gut feeling that I'm about to meet my person, and I did. Almost 4 years later. He's my very best friend, and I never imagined the love so pure, healthy and supportive. Before we started dating, she had become essentially my best friend with whom I did everything. Coffee after work every day. Hang out in the evenings and on weekends. After 4 months of this, I realized I had feelings of more than friendship and debated saying anything at all. I thought to myself, I'm going to either lose my best friend or start dating my future wife. Somewhere around the 6-month mark, there is a point where you just know, and for guys I think that's like 6-7 months or so. That doesn't mean you propose right then and there. That doesn't mean there aren't still discussions to be had and things to be hashed out, but you just know. It doesn't take a decade of dating IMO to know this person is the one. We went to test drive cars together after numerous months together, and I thought definitely more to this than both of us might have thought on our first date. A month or so later, I was getting ready to tell her I love her in her native language. But when she said it first and I said it back, she knew I had been practicing. It was only a couple dates in, and I realized while out on a walking trail that this is the best guy I've ever met. 3.5 years later we got married, which was 5.5 years ago now. I couldn't even fully explain why. I just knew he was someone different and special, and that I was very lucky to have met him. We jumped in with full trust and enthusiasm right away. We were obnoxious, giving relationship advice within weeks, thinking we figured it all out. We broke our personal rules, moved in together right away. It's been 18 years and full trust and love is still present. Went through a terrible 5-year on and off relationship with cheating and manipulation galore. Dated around, slept around for 1.5 years. Met my current girlfriend, and the rest was history. Never have I been treated with so much respect and love. Literally after our first date, I texted the mutual friend we met through and said, "You're going to sign a marriage certificate." Half joking, half serious. Sure enough, for years after our first day he was signing our marriage cert as a witness. It hit me and him the next morning after being official in our relationship. We always got along well before that, and now, the first time we talked, it felt like two old friends who've known each other for a long time and finally meeting up again. We have been inseparable since our first date. I don't even know how to explain it. I've just always had this happy, trusting, and loyal feeling about him. We've been together almost 2 decades now, and I still want to spend all of my time with him. I have very firm boundaries and believe people need to prioritize themselves and their needs over others. She was the first person whom I care about more than myself. Priorities are her, me, parents, siblings, the cats, and that's it. Date 1. We'd been talking for a few weeks on and off. We were both fresh out of other not so good relationships. There were things that we were not necessarily on the same page about, but I knew almost immediately that I'd marry her. Very shortly after getting together. No idea why, as he knows the hell out of me sometimes. But even so, we rarely argue. We've had to major arguments or we didn't speak to each other for a few days, and we've been married 20 years. When I realized that I've never felt like this about anyone else in my life, and that I didn't want to try and find out what my life would look like without her in it. Fast forward 17 years and 2 kids later, still feels the same. Completely uncharacteristic clarity for me about moving countries to stay with my partner. After never living more than 30 miles from the house I grew up in, that's when I knew I was in this forever. Only took 3 or 4 dates over the course of a few weeks. Was 90 sure if things went right she would be the one. The went right. And here we are 16 years, 2 kids, a dog, and a house in the burbs later. Honestly, it was during our first big fight. If we hadn't been so determined to make it work, We probably could have ended things right then and there, but we worked through it and now are happily married. At some point, every plan I had for the future involved her. It was a weird thing to realize. Oh, this won't work. She hates places like I can do a different job and move somewhere else. I didn't know it would last until after we got hitched. We were rolling the dice for sure. We had known each other only 6 months, and the latter 3 months of that we were separated by distance. I was driving home from work one day, and it hit me that for the first time I was afraid of dying. Not because I was afraid of death, but because I didn't want to be without her. Drove to a friend's house with her. On the drive I realized that we hadn't said anything for about 10-15 minutes, and I felt completely comfortable. Been married 24 years now. We were hanging out playing Minecraft one day after our movie date. I just realized I was supposed to spend the rest of my life with this woman. A decade later it's good. Before I asked him out, he wasn't even looking for a relationship or anything casual. He was the sorted to my chaos. Now 18 years later, I'm the sorted to his chaos. I just realized it the first time I looked into her eyes, and the way we held each other's hand. The spark we felt was real. We are now married in secret bond. I had spoiled milk in the garage refrigerator, and he cleaned it up without me asking or mentioning it. He just saw it needed to be done and did it. When I fell into the abyss, stepped looking up, as if Buffalo Bill was crying for his dog back, and I had to make deals for simple acts or rewards.